All right, so you guys need to go ahead and add this to your pod notebooks. Go ahead and pull out your pod, take a moment, pause the video, write down the pod, and actually solve this out. When you're ready to see the answer, press play. And then we'll get into a review of geometry and trigonometry, part two. All right, so hopefully you guys wrote this down. You've already solved it out. In the diagram, it shows points M at A18 and B at 2410. The straight line BM intersects the y-axis at A 026, and M is the midpoint of line segment AB. So it asks you to write down the value of A, and this is a write-down problem. It's worth 1 point, so it's pretty straightforward. Since M is the midpoint, you basically had to find, okay, what's the halfway point between the x value of 0 in A and the x value in B, which is 24. So halfway between 0 and 24 is indeed 12. So your answer was 12 for part A. Now for part B, I should find the gradient of line AB. Remember, gradient means slope. So, that was pretty much using your slope formula, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. And you pretty much just work that out. And so 10 minus 26 is indeed negative 16. And 24 minus 0 is 24. And of course, you want to reduce those fractions. And so 16 and 24 both have an 8 in common. And so the slope of this would be negative 2 over 3. And that should have been your answer for part B. Now, for C. C was the one that had the most points, and you had to decide whether AOM is a triangle, okay? So AOM, you had to decide if that was, not just any old triangle, but it had to be a right triangle. And listen, just because something looks like a right triangle doesn't necessarily mean that it is. You have to use the math to, one, justify your answer. And if you're like, well, if I guessed right on yes or no, do I get a point? And no, you don't. You have to have the reasoning. You have to have the justification. You have to have the math behind it to support whether or not you said yes or no. You just can't say yes or no and get the point. Even if you said the correct answer of yes or no and then your reasoning was wrong, you still don't get a point that way. They have to go together. So decide if that's the right triangle. You just can't say, well, it looks like it. You can't do that. There was actually 3 different ways the mark scheme had it. The way I think would probably be the easiest is to show that this angle right here at AM, this angle right here at AMO was indeed a right angle. And the way to do that is to basically find the slopes of those 2 lines, okay? And so I'm going to do it up here. So for part C, you already know the slope of AM. You actually found that in part B when you found the slope of AB. AM is on that line, so the slope of AB will be the slope of AM. So you found that out to be 2/3. Why not go ahead and find the slope of OM? Okay, the slope of OM. Since you already know that A is 12, you would go ahead and do 18 minus 0 all over 12 minus 0 because they are, 0 is the origin. So then you would have 18 over 12, and 18 over 12 reduces down to be 3 over 2 because both of them have a 6 in common, okay? And so by finding the slope of OM, what you can do is to determine if that is indeed a 90-degree angle, like I mentioned before, which I mentioned earlier, several days ago, was basically that if 2 lines are indeed perpendicular, then their products, when you multiply them together, will give you -1. And so what you would need to do is to show that when you do -2 over 3 times a positive 3 over 2, it equals -1. And so then you would want to write a sentence to say, because the product of their slopes is -1, the 2 lines are perpendicular. Therefore, it is a right triangle. And that was your answer for this. Yes, this was indeed a right triangle, okay? And you couldn't just say that, oh, well, yes, it's a right triangle and not provide any justification. You had to actually support it with the math, okay? You had to support it with the math. So that would have been your answer for part C, okay? And I was trying to get it so that I can move it up, but I forgot I did that a little separate, so there you go. Okay? So everybody got it? Good. A quick review of geometry and trigonometry part 2. This is where we talked about the 3-dimensional solids. This was your prisms. This was your pyramids, your cubes, your cones. your spheres, your cylinders. Okay, just to recap your memory, you have a three-dimensional figure. The faces are like, like the size of your prism or the base, the circular base. The edges are where, two faces intersect, and then the vertices are where multiple edges intersect. This is also where we talked about cross sections. When, say if you had the three-dimensional shape and it was like butter and you cut through it, the cross section is basically the what that piece would be if you cut it. What would that shape look like? Okay, so clearly you know that if you cut a cube, the cross section is going to be a square. If you cut a cylinder, the cross section is going to be a circle. If you cut a sphere, the cross section is going to be a circle. If you cut a square base pyramid, remember pyramids and prisms were named after their bases, so this would be a square base pyramid. If you cut a square base pyramid, the cross section is going to be just like the base square. This one here, this is a pentagonal prism, so when you cut it, it's going to be a pentagon. This one's a hexagonal prism, so when you cut it, the cross section is going to be a hexagon, and so on and so forth. This is also where we talked about, these are the types of problems where it says the angle that the plane ABCD makes with line CE. Well, plane ABCD is this plane right here in the back, and CE, it was the line that connected vertex C to the vertex E, and so it basically would have been that angle right there at the top. This is when we did this type of stuff as well. And the angle between lines BH and HA will BH and HA. Talking about that angle right there. This is where we used a lot of trigonometry, SOHCAHTOA, a Pythagorean theorem to find lengths of sides and measurements of angles, because we created right triangles within these three-dimensional shapes. Every single one of them were right, right prisms or right cones. None of them were slanted. We didn't have to deal with any oblique ones. This is where we also talked about surface area. Remember, surface area of a prism or a pyramid is just the area of all the faces added together. But the ones with the curved faces, like your cylinders, your cones, your spheres, I do believe those are in your reference booklet, but don't quote me on it. Look for yourself. These were the formulas here, where R represented the radius, H was the height, and L was the slant height. The part that I boxed in the orange was the curved surface area, aka the lateral area. A lot of the problems that we did last year did ask you for the curved surface area, which is basically part of the surface area formula. It basically did not include the bases, essentially. And this is also where we talked about volume. I do believe volume, every single volume formula is in your reference booklet, but just in case that it's not, here they are again, one last time, where R represents your radius, H is your height, the cross section, again, that was basically the base of the prism. You multiply that by the height to get the volume of your prism. Cuboids are just nothing but length times width times height, and then the other ones are below, as you can see. Okay, so this one pretty much incorporated a lot of geometry and trigonometry part one, but just took it into the three-dimensional world and less out of the two-dimensional world, which geometry and trigonometry part one was mostly about. And so what you're about to do is you're about to get on some more homework that deals with geometry and trigonometry part two, so a little bit more three-dimensional type stuff. And so you're going to be working on that for the rest of the period. I know I haven't seen you guys in a while, and I do extremely apologize. I've just been dealing with some things, but that's no excuse. I am available. You guys can message me on Schoology. You can leave a comment on today's post. You can text me. Every single one of y'all have my phone number. So, make sure that if you are struggling, you find a way to get in contact with me. If Ariadne is not there or Brenda is not there, someone is not there to help you, you can reach out to me. I do have access to my phone all the time, and so I do get these alerts whenever they do pop in. Okay, so please make sure that if anything is not making sense, that you do reach out and get in touch with me. I will on Monday go over any questions that you still have on the homeworks that you checked earlier, and then of course the homework that you're going to get today. So please make sure that if you have questions, you come ready. And as for the numbers in algebra quiz, please make sure that you continue to study numbers in algebra. Okay, as you look at the homework, you'll notice that there's some more numbers in algebra questions in there. You are going to, some of you guys, no, all of you guys are going to be requizzing. Okay, so just be ready for that. All right.